What is up everyone, Piscean here. In this video, we are going to look at solar return forecasting. And there's a lot to go over in this video, so before we get started, quick shout out to Report Labs for, being such a cool tool to use in regards to PDF creation. This is a Advanced Institute lesson, and it's going to be the first in a series. It's the first solar return forecasting. And then I will be making another video on solar return forecasting, different version. And then I'll be making a video on lunar forecasting. So subscribe, comment, share if you didn't care, but peace and love. And let's get started. So, right off the bat, we're going to look at the learning objectives and scope. By the end of this lesson, the student will be able to, or I should say, by the end of this video, the viewer hopefully will be able to define the solar return, solar revolution, and distinguish precessed from non-precessed calculation methods. Construct and read a solar return chart with correct orientation of angles and house cusps for the place of residence or chosen location. Identify and prioritize angular planets, luminaries, and outer planet configurations in the return chart. Synthesize natal solar return interaspects and evaluate house overlays between the two charts. Apply intra-year timing techniques. Progress solar return, monthly profections, lunar returns to refine forecasts. Evaluate relocation of the solar return chart and the ethical technical implications of chasing angles, and produce a structured written forecast that integrates symbolism, timing, and practical counsel. So, the Institute standard says this lesson assumes competence in natal chart delineation, major aspects, house systems, especially Placidus and whole sign, and basic transit work. Solar return forecasting is treated as a specialized predictive module within a broader forecasting curriculum that also includes secondary progressions, solar arc directions, and profections. Alright, so definition and astronomical biases. So solar return, also called solar revolution, is the moment the sun returns to the exact ecliptic longitude it occupied at birth. That instant defines a new chart, the solar return chart cast for the geographic location where the native is or chooses to be at the return. The chart is then interpreted as a map of the year ahead from birthday to birthday. Astronomically, the sun's mean motion is approximately 0 degrees, 59 Earth minutes per day. In tropical years, about 365.2422 days. Because the birth sun's longitude is fixed in the tropical zodiac, the return occurs once per tropical year, usually within a day of the calendar birthday. The precise UT of the return is obtained by interpolation of an ephemeris or by iterative calculation until the solar longitude matches the natal solar longitude within the desired precision, commonly 1 arc seconds or better for professional work. Two principal calculation conventions exist. We see non-precessed tropical solar return uses the tropical zodiac and the natal sun's tropical longitude. This is the method employed by the large majority of modern Western practitioners and software packages. Precessed sidereal reference solar return adjusts the natal solar longitude for precession of the equinoxes so that the return is calculated against a sidereal or fixed star frame. Advocates argue that this better preserves the true solar cycle relative to the stellar background. The difference accumulates at roughly 1 degree every 72 years and therefore becomes material for older natives or for research comparing long series of returns. Throughout this lesson, the default is the non-precessed tropical solar return. Precessed technique is noted where relevant and treated more fully in Appendix A, so stay tuned. So first, we're really going to get into the chart construction and orientation of, solar return charts in more detail. Once the exact UT of the solar return is known, a chart is erected for that moment and for a chosen geographic location. The location may be the place of residence on the birthday, most common default, a deliberately chosen location and relocation, solar return travel, the birthplace for comparison, or when residence is unknown. House system choice should be consistent with the practitioner's natal practice. Whether it's Placidus, Koch, and whole sign, these are all widely used. The Institute recommends stating the house system explicitly in every written forecast. The angles being the ascendant, midheaven, descendant, and MM Coli remain the primary structural points regardless of intermediate cusp calculation. So here we see the schematic solar return wheel for equal houses for illustration. And I'll explain at the bottom here. It says schematic solar return chart wheel. Planets are placed by house for visual teaching purposes. Exact longitudes and a chosen house system are required for actual delineation. We see the ascendant at the left, midheaven at the top, with standard orientation. These are 4 angles. So in professional software, the solar return chart is usually displayed with the same glyph set and aspectarian as a natal chart. Many programs also offer a bi-wheel, natal inside, solar return outside, or vice versa, and a list of interaspects between the two charts, tools that are indispensable for advanced work. So here we can clearly see that the individual has the ascendant, the cusp of Aries and Pisces. It looks like right there is the first house, so Aries. And then we see the descendant, which of course the opposite of Aries. And the midheaven just goes straight down. So this is just like your basic chart. Now we're going to look at core interpretive principles. So angular emphasis, planets near the angles of the solar return chart, especially within 8 through 10 degrees of the ascendant or midheaven, are the most potent indicators for the year. An angular solar return sun often correlates with high visibility, leadership opportunities, or a strong sense of personal agency. And we notice that an angular moon emphasizes emotional climate, domestic change, or public mood, while angular outer planets tend to mark structural or collective themes that intrude into personal life. House emphasis and stellium. So the houses occupied by the solar return sun, moon, and any stellium indicate the life areas that will receive the greatest activation. The solar return sun in the 10th house, for example, classically points to career, reputation, or public role. In the 4th, to home, family foundations, or psychological roots. Multiple planets in one house concentrate the year's narrative in that domain. Natal solar return interaspects. Aspects formed between solar return planets and natal planets or angles are among the strongest timing and thematic indicators. Solar return Mars square natal sun or solar return sun conjunct the natal moon will color the entire year with the quality of that contact. Orbs for interaspects are usually kept moderate, 4 through 6 degrees for major aspects involving luminaries, more angles, and tighter for outer planets. Solar return aspects to solar return planets. So the internal aspect pattern of the return chart describes how the year's energies interact among themselves. Solar return grand trine may facilitate smooth development in the houses involved, while a T-square or hard configuration involving the angles often correlates with challenged decision points or accelerated growth. This shows us major aspects routinely prioritized in solar return analysis: 0 degrees conjunction, 60 degrees sextile, 90 degrees square, 120 degrees trine, and 180 degrees opposition. And the solar return moon. Because the moon moves 13 degrees per day, its solar return position and aspects are highly sensitive to the exact return time and location. The SR moon sign, house, and aspects describe the emotional tone of the year, and often the timing of peak feeling or public exposure, especially when the moon is angular. Many classical and modern authors treat the SR moon as second only to the angles and the sun in predictive light. So timing techniques within the solar return year. Solar return chart, or we're just going to call it SR for the rest of this video, it describes the year as a whole, so finer timing requires additional techniques. The Institute curriculum emphasizes 3 complementary methods: progressed SR, or day for year prog of the SR. So the solar return chart, or SR itself, can be progressed. One day after the return equals 1 year of life, or more usefully for intra-year work, the chart is directed so that the progressed SR ascendant or midheaven contacts SR to natal planets at specific dates. Secondary progression of the SR moon, 1 degree per month, is especially practical for emotional and event timing. Monthly profections from the SR, assigning each month of the return year to successive houses or signs from the SR ascendant yields a simple monthly focus. When a profection month activates a house that already contains important SR planets, or when the profected ascendant aspects a key SR planet, that month often becomes eventful. Lunar returns and other subsidiary returns. So we see lunar returns. The moon's return to its natal longitude can be cast within the SR year and read as monthly weather charts. Demi-solar returns, or demi-SRs, sun opposite the natal sun, and quarterly SRs are used by some practitioners for intermediate checkpoints. These remain secondary to the main SR in its progression. So we look at the hierarchical timing toolkit for SR forecasting, technique, resolution, primary use, and institute note. So SR angles and planets, year, overall theme and life area emphasis, foundation of every forecast. Natal SR enter aspects, year, specific planetary dialogues, high priority in written work, progress SR moon, 1 month, divided by 1 degrees, emotional peaks, public moments, most accessible inter-year timer, monthly profections, month, house topic focus per month, simple, robust, teachable, and lunar returns, month, short-term climate, optional refinement later. Relocation of the SR. Because the angles of the SR depend on geographic location, it is technically possible to relocate the return by traveling to a place where desired planets fall in the ascendant or the midheaven. This practice, sometimes called SR chasing, is controversial. From a technical standpoint, the relocated chart is valid for the place where the native actually is at the return moment. From an ethical and practical standpoint, the Institute advises relocation should never be presented as a guarantee of specific outcomes. The natal chart and the non-relocated return remain the baseline. Relocation modulates expression rather than rewriting destiny. Clients should be informed of the temporary nature of angular emphasis gained by travel and of the importance of the place where they spend the majority of the year. Research and case collection suggest that angular planets and a relocated return do increase the visibility of those planetary themes, yet the underlying natal and transit picture continues to operate. Here is the recommended interpretation workflow. The following sequence is the Institute's recommended order for producing a professional SR forecast. It balances structural analysis with synthesis and practical counsel. Establish a chart. Confirm calculation method, precessed, non-precessed, as well as exact return time, location, and house system. Print or display natal and SR biwheel and interaspect list. Angular survey. List all planets within 8 degrees through 10 degrees of the ascendant, midheaven, descendant, Imun Cole. Note which natal houses those angles fall into. House overlay. Luminaries delineate SR sun, sign, house aspects, and SR moon, sign, house aspects, phase relative to the SR sun. Stelliums and house concentrations identify any house with 3 or more planets. Note empty angular houses as possible quiet zones or external event houses. Interaspects extract major aspects between the SR planets and natal planets' angles, ranked by orb and by involvement of luminaries or angles. Internal SR aspect patterns, note grand trines, T-squares, yods, stelliums, and any configuration that ties the angles together. Timing layer, apply prog SR moon and or monthly profections to identify peak months. Optionally add lunar returns for sensitive periods. Synthesis and counsel write a coherent narrative that names the dominant themes, the life areas most activated, the likely quality of experience, opportunity, pressure transition, and practical suggestions. Avoid fatalism, emphasize agency and preparation. So quality standard. A finished institute level SR report typically runs about 1,200 to 2,500 words or equivalent structured bullet analysis, includes at least one timing section, explicitly states calculation option to use, ends with clear actionable counsel rather than vague symbolism alone. Alright, we got 4 more pages left. And we're looking at advanced considerations, precess versus non-precess returns. So, Cumulative precession since birth means that a precess SR occurs at a slightly different time and therefore different angles than the tropical return. For a 40-year-old, the difference is on the order of half a degree of solar longitude, enough to shift the return by several hours and to move angles by many degrees. Some researchers report stronger even correlation with precess returns. Others find the tropical return sufficient. The Institute requires students to calculate both for at least 3 case studies before adopting a personal preference. Dual returns and B-Day year overlap. So when a native's B-Day falls near a major life transition, move, marriage, career change, it can be useful to examine both the return for the old location and the return for the new location, or to note the exact date the native changes residence relative to the return moment. The chart for the place of physical presence at the return remains the primary document. Outer planet SRs. Because outer planets move slowly, their SR positions change little from year to year relative to the natal chart. Their value lies in the houses they occupy in the SR chart, the angles they form to SR angles, and the inter-aspects they make to natal personal planets. A SR in which transiting Pluto is slightly conjunct the SR midheaven, for example, often coincides with a year of profound vocational or status restructuring. Integration with other forecasting tools, we see SRs work best inside a multi-technique framework. Secondary progs and solar arc directions describe longer developmental arcs. Transits supply the weather of specific weeks. Profections and annual techniques give the yearly skeleton. Solar return is the annual stage set on which those other timers play out. Contradictions among techniques are themselves informative. They often point to internal conflict or to outcomes that depend heavily on the native's choices. And here we see conceptual biwheel orientation, natal inner, and SR outer. Conceptual illustration of biwheel thinking, natal positions with the inner reference remain fixed while the SR chart outer rotates each year, producing new angular and inter-aspect relationships. And the footnotes, there's 6 of them. So first, classical sources, Arabic and medieval Latin traditions of anniversary revolutions already employed the SR as a yearly predictive chart. Modern popularization in the English-speaking world owes much to mid-20th century authors who systematized angular and house emphasis. Precession of the equinoxes is approximately 50.3 arc seconds per year. Precess return effectively uses a natal solar longitude advance by the amount of precession since birth, aligning the return more closely with a sidereal solar cycle. Empirical case collections consistently show elevated event rates. The SR planets are within a few degrees of angles, especially the midheaven and ascendant. Orb tightness correlates with intensity more than with mere presence. The SR moon speed makes it a natural clock for the year. Its aspects to SR angles and to natal planets are worth listing in every professional report. Relocation studies remain largely anecdotal. Controlled comparison of relocated versus non-relocated returns for the same native and year is a recommended research exercise for advanced students. Software packages that support both tropical and precess SRs allow side-by-side comparison. Students should document which method produced closer correspondence to known events and their practice cases. And appendixes. So first appendix is going to be precess solar return technical note to compute a precess SR. Obtain the natal sense of tropical longitude. Compute the precession from birth epoch to the current year. So that's 50.3 arc seconds multiplied by age in years. Form the target longitude. Normalize to 0 to 360 degrees. Find the UT at which the tropical sun reaches a target in the return year. Erect the chart for that UT in the chosen location. The resulting chart differs from the ordinary tropical SR, mainly in the angles and in the house positions of the planets. Planetary longitudes relative to each other remain nearly identical because all are shifted by essentially the same precessional amount. And Appendix B, suggested orbs for solar return work. SR. So contact type, luminaries, angles, personal planets, outer planets. So working orbs tighten for partile emphasis, widen slightly only when multiple concurrent testimonies support the theme. We see SR planet to SR angle, the luminaries and angles, 8 degrees to 10 degrees, personal planets 6 degrees to 8 degrees, and outer planets 4 degrees to 6 degrees. Okay? So the SR natal interaspect major, we see for our Luan, I'm calling it 5 degrees through 6 degrees, our people 4 degrees through 5 degrees, and our OP 3 degrees to 4 degrees. SR internal major aspect 6 degrees to 8 degrees for LA, 5 degrees through 6 degrees for our people, 3 degrees through 5 degrees for outer planets OP. And progress as our moon aspect, we see 1 degrees through 1.5 degrees for luminaries angles, personal planets 1 degrees, outer planets 0.5 degrees to 1 degrees. Appendix C, quick reference interpretation checklist. So, return time, location, and house system recorded. Angular planets listed with orbs. SR sun sign house aspects summarized. SR moon sign house aspects and phase noted. House concentrations, stelliums identified. Meteor natal SR inter aspects extracted and ranked. Internal SR patterns, T-squared, grand trine, etc. noted. Timing later, progressed moon or perfections applied. Synthesis written in clear, non-fatalistic language. Practical counsel and preparation suggestions included. Calculation method, tropical precess stated. And we have Appendix D, glossary of SR terms. So, angular planet is a planet within a few degrees of descendant, midheaven, descendant, or IC of the SR chart considered highly active before the year. Biwheel, a tool chart display with natal positions in the inner wheel and SR positions in the outer wheel, or to reverse, used to read interaspects and house overlays. House overlay, the placement of SR angles or planets into the houses of the natal chart and vice versa, showing which natal life areas are activated. Interaspect, an aspect formed between a SR planet and a natal planet or angle. Non-precess SR, the ordinary tropical SR, sun returns to the natal tropical longitude without adjustment for precession. Precess SR, ASR calculated after advancing the natal solar longitude by the amount of precession since birth, aligning the return with a sidereal solar cycle. Progressed SR is going to be the SR chart advanced by secondary progression or other directional keys to time events within the return year. Relocation of the SR, casting the SR for a geographic location other than the place of residence, thereby changing the angles and house positions. SR solar revolution, chart cast by the exact moment the sun returns to its natal ecliptic longitude, uses the forecast map for the year from B-Day to B-Day. SR moon, the moon's position in the SR chart, primary indicator of emotional tone, public exposure, and monthly timing when progressed. Stellium, 3 or more planets occupying the same SR house or type longitude span, concentrating the year's themes in one life area. And the final appendix is recommended for study. Students are encouraged to work at least 5 complete SR case studies on chart plus 4 others with known life events before offering professional SR forecasts. Compare tropical and precess versions, test relocation hypothesis where travel occurred, and keep a structured record of hits and misses. Integration with secondary progression, stellar arc directions, and annual perfections remains the Institute's preferred multi-technique standard. Alright, this is intended for educational use only. Calculation, precision, ethical communication, and continuous case review are essential components of professional SR practice. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned something with peace and love. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, see you now.